Wembley is an iconic stadium. It's hosted some of the biggest events in history. In this case, 90,000 people watching the Sidemen and their friends play in a charity football match, and that was sold out effectively instantly. As they were announcing each of the players before the match started, it was very clear which ones the audience liked the most, and of course, because it's a British crowd, they cheered far louder for the British players, and it wasn't even close.
Their goalkeeper's number 1, Sketch, wearing 23 will be Dexter!
One of the funniest notes that I picked up from when this was happening was you had, KSI number, whatever, everyone's like, oh my god! And then next, FaZe Jason. And I literally heard someone shout, who? Because of course the Sidemen want to bring on a couple of American creators so that they can pull that audience over. Because what I assume is their biggest audience is the US, the UK, then Australia. So you want a mix of these areas so that you can pull all these demographics in and give them someone to root for. So of course the biggest American creators that they brought on were Mr. Beast, Mark Rober, and Logan Paul from 3 fairly different niches. And then they had a couple extra smaller ones. And then from Australia they had Lennon and Lachlan. And then of course the universally liked Kai Cenat and Speed. Despite not being from the hometown, got cheers throughout the whole crowd whenever they got a possession of the ball. It was a very fun, laid-back crowd because it was alcohol-free, because it was so young. It meant that people were just happy, having a good time. It wasn't like they were major club rivalries. It was just people there rooting for individual stories, that each player, each person had a different reason to be there. You're waiting for Max Fosh to perform and create another meme-worthy event. You're waiting for Speed to try and score. You're waiting for Josh, who has never scored in a Sidemen charity match, to score for the first time ever. Every time he got the ball, you heard chants from the crowd being like, come on Josh, just kick it, you can get it. And they were able to hype up these stories, able to hype up these narratives in their podcast episodes, in their videos, in the run up to this, talking about what has worked, what hasn't worked in previous events, and what they're trying to achieve in each one. So that when people show up on game day, they know exactly what to look for and what moments to hope turn out. If you like what you're watching, I've got a newsletter where I discuss everything to do with the news media space, what it means for our future, and what we can do about it. So to check that out, click the link in the description and you'll receive an email once a week, every Tuesday morning, right into your inbox. On to the rest of the video. Like you had Theo, who in the last charity match came in as a big prospect who ended up tearing a muscle before he could actually do anything. But this time, scoring a hat-trick. The funniest roast, though, I heard is when Nico tried to go on goal, missed, and someone shouted, hey Nico, you should go back to elections, in reference to when he ran for the London mayor and was actually the biggest candidate who wasn't part of a major party, which, it's not a bad roast to have against you. And I've seen many sports events in my lifetime, and yet I've never heard as many laughs as what came from this match. There were so many moments that cracked people up, whether it be slide tackles, whether it be stumbles, whether it be memeable moments. So much brought so much joy to this crowd that have been watching them for so many years. What I think works really well, and what I wouldn't be surprised if they did very intentionally, is that they would constantly sub in and out players. Because of course, most of them aren't athletes, most of them probably need rests, and it gives lots of people airtime to actually perform and play. But also, if one team ends up being too good, you can take the best players out and put the funny players back on, so that you can keep a very balanced match, and it can go to something like a 9-9, because there is nothing more boring than a match that is near all and nothing happens throughout. So they don't have good players in goal, they just have fun players in goal, because you don't want them to stop everything. You want them to stop just a little bit, that they're not incompetent, but not so much. It makes the game boring. But the performance though, the halftime performance, I think something must have gone wrong because it took them so long to finally start, and AJ only had 2 songs. But then he handed it off to KSI, who performed thick of it, and the crowd went wild. The problem with a lot of halftime shows is that you're like a little ant on a massive field. This isn't your stage, this isn't your performance. It's really hard to capture this entire crowd. But despite that, I think KSI had some of the greatest stage presence I've ever seen in regards to this. That once again, despite being a tiny little ant on an entire field, he managed to capture the crowd nonetheless, and part of this is just having a really catchy song that can get the crowd energized. Besides that though, I think the biggest moment for the crowd in particular, people were throwing paper planes throughout, right? They got their tickets, they folded up, see how far they can go. Then a bunch of them kept landing on the field. But the biggest laugh the crowd ever got was one of the planes that someone had thrown, I don't quite know from where, but end up scoring a goal, flying right over the pitch, right through the net. Now that, arguably, is the most impressive athletic achievement on the entire pitch. Finishing on the penalty match was electric, especially when Sketch was able to defend a goal from the Sidemen's best player, Mini-Minter, and that goal save ended up being what won them the match in the end. This is not something that could have been planned, it's not something that could have been scripted, and is hence why it is so great, so entertaining, and why so many people show up. In the end, they ended up raising £3.4 million for charity, probably even more by now. And that's what's so good about these events, is there's such a community focus, there's such a focus of how can we do this for the right reasons, for the right people, that I highly doubt they make money on this. I think I've heard in the past that they actually often lose money because they don't want to say, sorry charities, we can't give you anything because it cost us so much to put this event together. But when you really focus on your community, when you do things that don't make financial sense but deliver real value, that's what keeps people around. Stuff that can't be quantifiable in some broad economic analysis, but instead just feels right. Instead is something that everyone really loves, really enjoys, and just desperately wants to participate in. This is where creators win, not trying to make the quickest buck possible, but really trying to deliver for their community and the world as a whole. If you want to see more videos like this, I've got the perfect playlist for you right here. Enjoy.